Welcome back. Today we're looking at a report on Ripple's big partnership with AMINA Bank, a FINMA-regulated bank in Europe, a really solid piece of source material.
Oh, absolutely. The facts are there, the subject is timely. It's covering a genuine market milestone, something that really deserves focused attention.
It does, and that's actually the perfect place to start. Let's get right into the first critique. The crucial institutional significance of this Ripple and AMINA partnership is, well, it's just significantly diluted by where it's placed. It's surrounded by a vast amount of fragmented, high-volume market data.
That is the perfect way to put it. It's a fundamental misalignment, isn't it, between the goal of the piece and how it's actually presented?
Exactly. You have this major, high-impact institutional announcement, and it's immediately preceded and just surrounded by completely unrelated noisy elements.
It's a classic case of structural dissonance. You're trying to highlight something really strategic, but you're drowning it out with tactical noise.
That's the weakness right there. The clutter around it acts like static. We're talking dozens of volatile price tickers, BTC, ETH, Doge, all of that, sitting right next to the headline.
It primes the reader for a completely different kind of story.
It does. And then you have these generic market links woven in, things like, future of XRP or top 10 AI stocks. It forces the sophisticated reader, the one who actually cares about FINMA regulation, to wade through so much noise just to get to the core story.
It's like serving institutional caviar on a fast food tray. The presentation just undermines the quality of the content. That reader shouldn't have to work that hard.
So the high-level story is being treated like it's just another piece of a daily market data feed.
Precisely. So the solution, the suggestion for improvement here, has to be about hierarchy. You have to isolate and elevate the most significant institutional news to make sure its strategic value lands immediately.
We need to build a clear structure.
Absolutely. The material needs to draw a very clear line between, say, investigative journalism on institutional moves and just simple market commentary.
So for a concrete example, you could create a dedicated section, maybe something called institutional focus or regulatory milestones.
Exactly, a specific category that immediately signals the gravity of the article and it separates it from the day-to-day global information feed.
But I wonder, what if some of that noisy data is there for a reason? Like for traffic or SEO performance? What's the trade-off if we move it all?
That's a fair question, but you have to consider the cost of losing that sophisticated reader. If you compromise your authority for a few extra page clicks, you're actually undermining the very asset you're trying to promote.
You lose credibility.
You lose credibility, but you don't have to delete it all. If that operational data has to stay, it just needs to be relegated. For instance, all those granular announcements, like Bitget adjusting funding rates, or listing and delisting 12 different tickers.
Or the Pendle token moves, yeah.
Right. All of that stuff should just be grouped together.
Okay, so a concrete fix would be to consolidate all of that into, say, an exchange activity log.
Yes. And put that log at the very end of the page. Or, even better, link out to it so it doesn't interrupt the core report at all.
And most importantly, we have to fix the tone right at the top. The current layout has the BTC price, 13 million whatever, sitting right above the headline.
It primes the reader for speculation, not strategy. That's entirely the wrong first impression. So the goal here should be to inform institutional strategists. And what they're looking for is surgical clarity, not the chaos of a trading floor.
That makes perfect sense. Reorganizing it gives it immediate impact. And, speaking of strategy, that leads us right into the second major point about how this content is being framed.
Ah, yes, the angle.
Exactly. While the material correctly identifies AMINA Bank as FINMA regulated, it treats this critical regulatory context as just a factual attribute, not the core strategic angle of the story.
And that is the pivotal missing piece. It's the whole so what factor. The article really emphasizes the functional benefits, right? Faster transactions, lower costs, reliability.
All the expected deliverables.
All the expected stuff. Yeah, RLUSD integration. But it completely underplays why getting a FINMA-regulated European partner is such a monumental achievement, not just technically, but geopolitically.
The piece just neglects the so what beyond the tech benefits.
It does. And we have to remember, FINMA isn't just any regulator. It's Switzerland's financial market authority. It's known globally for its incredibly robust standards.
A FINMA approval is not just a rubber stamp.
Not at all. It's a signal. It represents this deep institutional trust that you absolutely need to penetrate Europe's, fairly conservative traditional finance system.
So the suggestion here is to foreground that compliance framework. Make that the primary significance of the news.
Yes, it gives the reader a fresh, much more sophisticated perspective. It links the tech rollout directly to the critical need for institutional legitimacy and, really, market entry.
That completely shifts the narrative. It goes from we have faster payments to we have a regulatory market entry strategy.
It's about building a regulatory moat, not just a better tech stack. And so a key suggestion for improvement is to just shift the introductory framing completely.
How so?
Instead of starting with Ripple announced near-instant international transfers, which is just a feature, you start with the strategic importance of this FINMA regulatory approval. You present the AMINA as this key regulatory gateway into Europe.
You know, there's a perfect quote in here already from Kathy Craddock at Ripple. She called AMINA an entry point for digital asset innovators into traditional finance.
That is a phenomenal phrase. But right now, it's just mentioned, and then they move on. A concrete improvement would be to expand directly on that quote. Use it as the pivot.
Make it the core of the argument.
Make it the core. Move the discussion from technical speed to global regulatory strategy. Ask the question, what does a FINMA endorsement signal to every other major bank in Europe?
And you have to connect the dots. I mean, AMINA wasn't a random choice. They were already the first bank to offer custody for Ripple's RULUSD stablecoin back in early 2025.
That's the real story. That relationship, backed by a regulator like FINMA, is the strategic narrative. You have to draw a direct line from the FINMA-backed custody to the subsequent FINMA-backed payments adoption.
It shows a deliberate roadmap.
It shows a thoughtful, deliberate regulatory roadmap for institutional penetration, not just a one-off tech sale. That's what the institutional reader is actually looking for, that robustness.
Right. Focusing on regulatory robustness over mere transaction speed is a huge reframing. And that strategic framing, it directly relates to our third main critique, which is all about defining and serving the target audience.
This is where everything really intersects, isn't it? The structural problems and the narrative problems.
It is, because the document attempts to speak to a sophisticated institutional audience and a retail crypto beginner at the exact same time. And the result is just a confusing and diluted purpose for the whole piece.
It's trying to serve two masters, and frankly, neither is being served well.
The main article is discussing these highly sophisticated concepts, right? Licensed end-to-end payment solutions, cross-border FX market coverage, stablecoin custody integration. This is language for compliance officers and corporate treasurers.
And yet the supporting content immediately pivots to these really basic retail acquisition calls to action. You see things like how to start crypto now.
Or generic explainers of investment risk. It's such a jarring transition.
It absolutely is, and it diminishes the authority of the main piece. If your headline is screaming institutional breakthrough, your surrounding context needs to reflect that same intellectual level.
So we need to segment the content based on audience expertise. We have to define the primary goal, and assuming the institutional report is the intended core.
Which it has to be given the subject matter.
Right.
Then the supporting material has to align with that level of sophistication.
So a concrete example would be to just replace those generic calls to action entirely. Instead of a link that says, XRP news and price, what kind of content would actually benefit that sophisticated reader?
Something much more targeted, much higher value. For instance, link to a detailed analysis of alternative cross-border payment solutions. Let the reader compare Ripple's offering against Swift GPI or other decentralized networks. That's a genuine research tool.
That's valuable. Or maybe a deep dive on global stablecoin regulatory comparison, analyzing how different jurisdictions, including FINMA, treat tokens like RLUSD.
That is the level of intellectual engagement this content demands. Now, if the retail elements absolutely have to stay, maybe because they're part of a core traffic funnel or something,
then they have to be contained.
they have to be visually confined. You have to move the beginner guides and the feature content like what is lending into a separate, clearly marked off sidebar, or even better, a footer, somewhere it doesn't interrupt the core flow.
It needs to look intentional, not just like clutter that was left there.
Exactly. The goal is to maximize the impact of your primary, high value narrative. And right now, the periphery is just a major distraction from that core.
I think those three adjustments really offer a powerful path forward. We've targeted the structure to remove the noise, we've elevated the angle to focus on the strategic regulatory win, and we've sharpened the audience alignment.
Absolutely. By focusing on these high level editorial decisions, especially creating that content hierarchy and really reframing the FINMA status, the submission can move from being a comprehensive data feed to a truly focused, authoritative strategic analysis.
The technical depth is already there.
It is. Now it just needs the structural polish and the strategic frame to really shine.
Okay, so to briefly summarize for the listener, there are three key areas for immediate improvement. First, enhance the structural focus. That means separating the high-impact institutional news from the daily trading noise and just cleaning up the article's surroundings.
Get rid of the clutter.
Second, maximize the strategic regulatory angle of that FINMA partnership. Foreground compliance and institutional legitimacy as the core narrative, not just transaction speed.
Make it about the why, not just the what.
And third, clarify the audience alignment. Remove that jarring beginner content from this high-level report and replace it with higher-value comparative analysis that actually serves the target reader.
Implementing those suggestions will significantly strengthen the piece. It'll turn what is already excellent factual reporting into a true strategic insight for the banking and regulatory world.
We really look forward to seeing the update. Please apply these improvements, submit your work back to us, and let's help you achieve that next level of excellence. Until then, we'll be here ready to critique.